Hey guys, so I've been looking around and I haven't really found a general care or information video on Chinese water dragons. I've only had mine for a few days, but for the past few months I've been doing a lot of research on them. I have a whole notebook full of information on them, and I'm slowly compiling my own kind of care regime thing. Is that the right word? Regime. Regimen. So once I get that more settled out, I'll do a video on that, but for now I'm just going to let you know the basics of Chinese water dragons. And the Chinese water dragon, I'm going to start. So they originated from Southeast Asia, Thailand, southern China, Vietnam, and Cambodia. They can live from 10 to 20 years. Hatchlings are about 1 inch from size, snout to bent, and 5 to 6 inches in total length, including their tail. Adult males can range up to 3 feet in length, and adult females 2 feet in length. Their tails generally make up 70 to 75% of their body total length, and they use their tails for balance, leverage when climbing, and can whip would-be predators and attackers. They also have a small kind of shiny little 1 to 2 millimeter circle right in between on their forehead, right in between their eyes. It's known as their third eye. Apparently it helps them regulate light. It's like understand light and know when it's light and dark out, and help them regulate their body temperatures. I thought that was pretty cool. They're not the only lizards that have it. Others do. I don't really know which ones. For their enclosure, Chinese water dragons need height because they're climbers, but they also need length. If you have a full... Hatchlings and juveniles can be housed in smaller aquariums and terrariums, but once they're full grown or sub-adults, you're going to need them in their adult enclosure. For a general rule for Chinese water dragons, a general rule for Chinese water dragons is their enclosure needs to be 2 times their length. So if you have a 2-foot long Chinese water dragon, their enclosure should be about 4 feet in length. If you have a 3-foot long Chinese water dragon, 6-foot long enclosure. Height, 4 to 6 feet, and needs to be 2 to 3 feet wide. Yeah, Chinese water dragons grow fast, so usually it's good to have your adult habitat ready or on its way to being set up when they're babies or juveniles, just so that it's not so much of a rush when they are getting to that size where they can't stay in that little tank anymore. Temperatures during the day need to be at about 85 to 90. At night, they can be 75 to 80. Improper temperatures can result in your Chinese water dragon becoming ill, such as they can have respiratory infections, weakening of immune system, and inadequate digestion. Getting your temperatures up properly, you might have to play around with different wattages of light bulbs to get it just right. You may need 1 to 2 basking lamps depending on your temperatures. A good night heat source would be a ceramic heat emitter or a ceramic bulb. Make sure that all of your heat sources are not directly make sure all of your heat sources, like your lights, are not directly in your aquarium. Well, they can be directly in your aquarium, but not in a way where your water dragon can directly touch it, because they'll get burnt, and you don't want your dragon to be burnt. So outside of your aquarium, about 10 inches away from your water dragon's basking spot, or from like the height that they'd be away from the light source. Lights, you definitely need to be providing UVB lights in the form of fluorescent bulbs. Incandescent bulbs do not provide UVB light. They usually only provide UVA. And your Chinese water dragon needs UVB light to produce vitamin D3 in order to absorb calcium in their diet. Without that, your Chinese water dragon is going to get sick and could end up with metabolic bone disease, but we'll get more into that later. Just a little side note, many incandescent bulbs will state on their packages that they produce light in the full spectrum. That means that they're producing light in the full color spectrum, not in the full light rays spectrum. So you're not getting UVB lights, you're only getting UVA rays, not UVB. You need to understand that your water dragon needs UVB light. Another thing, humidity. You need a humidity gauge. Humidity is something important you need to be at least attempting to keep up. It may be really hard to. Ideal humidity would be around 80. In my terrarium, it's really hard to keep it at 80. It's best to never let your humidity drop below 50. Constant misting can help. I would go maybe 3 mists a day. You can also get other things to help keep your humidity up, such as potted plants. Do your research though. Make sure anything you're putting in your terrarium is not harmful to your water dragon. What else? Waterfalls, foggers, and misting helps. I already said misting. Yeah. If you're putting plants in there, make sure you research them. Don't put anything with flowers in there, or it'll entice them to eat them. Substrate, nothing that can be ingested. So if you're feeding directly on substrate, you don't want any. Never use sand for your water dragon. He's a tropical animal. Usually no sand where they are. They're up in the trees, so there should be no reason why there's sand in your terrarium. Eco-earth is okay. I use eco-earth. I have a little bit of eco-earth right in the corner. He doesn't eat directly on it, so there's no way of him ingesting it. If your Chinese water dragon has ingested your substrate, there's a possibility of impaction. And next we'll be moving on to water. It's in their name, so they clearly like water. I'm going to go with and say they love water. You need a large water bowl in your terrarium, something that they can ideally submerge their full body in, if not at least up to 50% of their body. Changing the water daily is ideal. They do defecate in the water, so you want to be at least doing half water changes in there, taking half a container out, putting half a new container in. Water filter, some sort of aquatic water filter is definitely suggested. I have the Recti filter, I think it's called. It's a turtle filter, I think. Maybe. I don't know, but that's what I use. It seems to be working pretty well. When you wash out your water bin, do not use bleach. Bleach is bad. There's a chance it could be settling. There could be sediment still in there, and it could harm your water dragon. I suggest just using regular dish soap. Just wash it out with a little bit of dish soap, rinse it really well, and let it dry, and you should be good. We'll do food before we do MBD. Food items to offer your Chinese water dragon: crickets, mealworms, normal, jumbo, and super, waxworms, earthworms, grasshoppers, butterworms, locusts, and these four right here I consider whole prey. They are small feeder fish, pinkies, and cockroaches. You can disagree with me on that if you want. It's just what I consider them. And it's just for my own dividing up how I will be feeding him and his types. You'll see. Chinese water dragons are omnivorous. That's the right word. So they do eat fruits and vegetables. Fruits that with good calcium content are figs, raspberries, cantaloupes, strawberries, and blueberries. Veggies with adequate calcium to phosphorus ratios are collards, dandelions, the ones that grow outside, yellow squash, sweet potato, parsnips, green beans, and occasionally carrots. Okay, and this is like the percentage of maybe what you could divide up your food into feeding him like in a week. So say this is 100% ratio in a week, I guess. Insects, you'd be feeding 50 to 60%. 50 to 60% of your water dragon's diet should be insects. Whole prey, which I said before, was small feeder fish, pinkies, and cockroaches, rodents, or any sort, depending on the size, which is whole prey. Whole prey, blah. 40 to 20%, depending on what you feel like. And fruits and veggies should make up about 10% of their diet. Crickets, mealworms, waxworms should be dusted with a vitamin supplement once a week, and they should also be dusted. You should also be dusting every other meal with calcium. Yeah. Meaning calcium for these guys is a really big thing. If they don't have enough calcium in their body, they will develop metabolic bone disease. It's very common in Chinese water dragons. Main causes for MBD are poor diet, low in calcium or overly high in phosphorus, and inadequate UVB lighting. Like I said before, if you don't have the proper UVB lighting, your water dragon will end up with MBD. Symptoms of MBD are muscle tremors, spontaneous bone fractures, skeletal deformities, inadequately calcified eggs, tender jaw, square jaw, knobby knees. Most to all symptoms can be felt before they're seen. And metabolic bone disease can also affect internal organs as well as bones. So if your water dragon ends up with MBD, it's pretty much your fault as a reptile keeper. Not to lay the blame too harshly, but you've not been taking the proper care of your Chinese water dragon. I haven't really found anything saying that MBD is reversible or curable. Maybe stallable if you start providing everything properly once you noticed early symptoms, but I know that MBD is fatal. Ending on a harsh note, but yeah. Well, that's pretty much all I have. Well, it's not all I have for Chinese water dragons, but that's all I feel like going over right now. It's the general information that someone might need or want to know if they're looking into getting a Chinese water dragon or jumped into getting one and are kind of stumped with it now. Yeah. Maybe I'll show you his thing. No, he's sleeping. Wait. Well, anyways, enough of that.